What happens when a CEO goes undercover in his own car dealership and witnesses a salesman humiliating a struggling customer? Ethan Carter had built his dealership chain from the ground up. What started as a single lot had grown into a network of 12 locations across the state. But lately, customer complaints had been piling up: rude staff, unfair pricing, and a culture that seemed to prioritize profits over people. Ethan hated it. He'd worked too hard for his business to turn into just another soulless dealership. His executives assured him everything was fine. Minor issues, they said. Nothing to worry about. But Ethan wasn't convinced. He needed to see for himself, so he decided to go undercover. With the help of a professional disguise artist, Ethan transformed into Tom Reed, an average-looking middle-aged man with graying hair, glasses, and a slight limp. He dressed in a cheap polo shirt, worn-out jeans, and scuffed sneakers, just another guy looking for a car. No one at the dealership had ever met him in person. His face was only known to upper management, and at this particular location, he was just another customer walking in. As soon as he stepped onto the lot, he felt the energy shift. Salesmen hovered near the entrance, scanning customers like vultures. A younger salesman, probably in his 20s, locked eyes with Ethan but quickly looked away. He was clearly looking for someone who looked like an easy sale. Then, Ethan noticed an older man standing near the used cars, probably mid-50s, wearing a faded work uniform and looking nervous. His hands fidgeted at his sides. A salesman approached him, tall, confident, and with the kind of smirk that screamed arrogance. His name tag read Chad. Ethan casually wandered closer, pretending to browse but listening in. "Looking for something cheap, huh?" Chad said, his voice dripping with condescension. The older man nodded. "Yeah, I just need something reliable. My car broke down and I need it to get to work. I don't have much to spend," but Chad laughed. "Oh man, you came to the wrong place if you're looking for cheap. You see that rust bucket over there?" He pointed to a beat-up sedan. "That's the lowest-priced car on the lot, and even that's probably out of your range." The man's face fell. I was hoping I could maybe do financing." Chad scoffed. "With your credit." "Doubt it." He folded his arms. "Look, buddy, I don't make the rules. You either have the money or you don't. No dealership's gonna give you a loan if you can't even afford a down payment." The man swallowed hard, his face red with embarrassment. Ethan clenched his fists. Then Chad went further. "Honestly, you should try Craigslist. Maybe you'll find something in your price range there, or a bicycle." A few other salesmen in the background snickered. The man looked humiliated. He shook his head, muttered thanks anyway, and turned to leave. Ethan had seen enough. His heart pounded. He wanted to step in right then and there, but he forced himself to stay in character. He needed to see more before making his move. Instead, he followed the man outside. "Sir," Ethan called, jogging up beside him. "Hey, I couldn't help but over here." "I'm actually looking for a car too, but that was out of line. Are you okay?" The man sighed, rubbing his temple. "It's fine, I should have known. Dealerships see guys like me and don't even bother." Ethan shook his head. "That's not how it should be." The man hesitated before speaking again. "I lost my wife last year, cancer. Medical bills wiped me out. My car lasted as long as it could, but now it's done. I work construction. If I can't get to the site, I don't get paid." He forced a weak smile. "Guess I'll figure something out." Ethan's stomach twisted. This wasn't just a bad salesman, this was a culture problem. His dealership was failing people like this man, people who just needed a break. "Look," Ethan said, "let me see what I can do. I know a guy who helps people find decent used cars at fair prices." "No scams." The man gave him a skeptical look. "That's kind of you, but I don't think anyone's gonna help me out of charity." Ethan smiled. "It's not charity. It's the right thing to do." The man hesitated, then nodded. All right, if you think you can help. Ethan pulled out his phone. What's your name? Mike. Ethan saved the contact. I'll be in touch, Mike. Mike shook his hand and walked off. Ethan turned back toward the dealership, his jaw tight. He had a lot more to see, but one thing was already clear: things were about to change. Ethan stepped back onto the lot, his mind racing. He had come undercover to get a glimpse of how his dealership was really being run, and he'd already seen enough to know things were worse than he'd imagined. But he needed to understand the full extent of the problem before making his move. He wandered toward the showroom, keeping his disguise intact. Inside, the glossy floors reflected the overhead lights, and the scent of fresh leather filled the air. The place looked immaculate, but Ethan knew appearances could be deceiving. A young saleswoman, probably in her late 20s, approached him with a polite but slightly wary smile. Her name tag read Lena. "Hi there, welcome in," she said in a professional tone. "Looking for anything in particular today?" Ethan played his role. "Yeah, thinking about something reliable but not too expensive. Maybe a used model," Lena nodded. "Of course. I can show you some options." She glanced around quickly as if checking if anyone was watching her, then she lowered her voice. "Just a heads up. The financing team here pushes some pretty aggressive terms. Make sure you read everything before signing." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Aggressive how?" She hesitated. "Let's just say they don't always explain things clearly. Hidden fees, high interest rates. Some people don't realize what they're getting into until it's too late." Ethan's stomach tightened. He had built this company to be honest and fair, but if what Lena was saying was true, then his own employees were misleading customers for profit. Before he could ask more, a sharp voice cut through the air. "Lena, what are you doing?" A man in his 40s approached. His suit was crisp, his expression sharp. His name tag read Rick Sales Manager. Lena straightened immediately. "Just helping a customer, Rick." Rick barely glanced at Ethan before fixing Lena with a cold stare. "If you have time to chat, you have time to close deals. Move it." Lena clenched her jaw but gave Ethan an apologetic look before walking away. Rick turned to him, his demeanor shifting instantly to something more polished. "Sorry about that. She's still learning how things work." "Now what can I help you with?" Ethan forced a casual smile. "Just looking for something affordable," Rick nodded. "We've got plenty of options, and don't worry about the price. We'll make the numbers work." Ethan recognized the tactic immediately. Hook the customer, lock them in, then overwhelm them with paperwork until they sign without reading the fine print. Rick led him to an office where a finance officer joined them. The pitch began immediately. They steered him toward a financing plan, one with a low monthly payment, but an outrageously high interest rate. If Ethan had been an actual customer, he would have been trapped in a deal that would cost him thousands more than necessary. And they didn't explain a single risk. Ethan played along, feigning hesitation. "This seems like a lot more than I expected." Rick leaned in, his voice smooth. "It's the best deal you'll get. Trust me." Ethan glanced at the finance officer. "What if I don't qualify for this rate?" The man smirked. "Oh, you won't. But don't worry, we have other options." Ethan's patience was wearing thin. This wasn't just one bad salesman, this was systemic. They were trained to do this. Just then, a commotion outside caught his attention. A woman was arguing with Chad, the same arrogant salesman from before. "I was promised a fair deal," she snapped, her voice shaking. "Now you're telling me my payments are $200 higher than I agreed to," Chad shrugged. "Ma'am, you signed the paperwork, it's all in there. You rushed me through it. You didn't explain any of this." "That's not my problem," Chad smirked. "If you can't afford it, maybe next time read the contract before you sign." The woman's hands trembled with frustration. "I need this car for my job. I can't afford these payments." Ethan had seen enough. He stood abruptly, startling Rick and the finance officer. "Excuse me," he muttered, walking toward the argument. As he stepped closer, Chad turned, his smirk still plastered on his face. "Sir, if you're looking for a deal, I can." Ethan took a deep breath and dropped the act. "I don't need a deal, Chad." His voice was firm, cutting through the air like a blade. "I own this dealership." The room went silent. Chad's smirk vanished instantly. Rick's face paled. The finance officer sank into his chair. Lena, standing nearby, covered her mouth in shock. Ethan slowly removed the glasses and wiped his face, revealing his true self. The woman who had been arguing with Chad stared in confusion. "Wait, you're the owner?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, ma'am, and I'm sorry for what you've been put through." He turned back to Chad. His voice stayed calm, but his eyes were cold. "You humiliated a man in need today. You mocked a customer who just wanted a chance, and now you're doing the same to this woman." Chad opened his mouth, but Ethan cut him off. "You're fired." Chad's face turned red. "You can't." "I just did." Ethan turned to Rick. "And you," Rick straightened, his confidence crumbling. "This is how you train your team to deceive. To push people into financial traps," Rick stammered. I was just following the company model." Ethan's voice dropped to a dangerous calm. "No, you were following a culture of greed. A culture that ends today." Rick swallowed hard. Ethan looked at Lena. "You tried to warn me, you told me the truth, I appreciate that." Lena hesitated. I just didn't want to see people get taken advantage of." Ethan nodded. "That's the kind of integrity this place needs." He turned back to the room. "Things are changing. Effective immediately." He glanced at the woman who had been arguing with Chad. "Ma'am, we'll fix your contract. No hidden fees, no surprises." Tears welled in her eyes. "Thank you." Ethan exhaled, his heart still pounding. This dealership had lost its way, but he would make sure it found it again. The tension in the showroom was suffocating. Ethan stood in the center of it all, the weight of what he had uncovered pressing down on him. Employees whispered amongst themselves, exchanging nervous glances. Customers, some frozen in place, others pretending to browse, were clearly aware that something big was happening. Rick's jaw was clenched so tightly, it looked like he was holding back a storm of words. Chad, still red-faced from embarrassment, had stormed out without another word. The finance officer shifted uncomfortably in his chair, clearly hoping to avoid the same fate. Ethan turned to the employees watching from the sidelines. "Anyone else have something to say?" His voice was steady, but there was no mistaking the edge to it. "If you've been misleading customers, pushing them into bad deals, now's the time to come clean." Silence. No one wanted to be the next Chad. Ethan exhaled sharply. "Fine. Then let me make something clear. This place isn't going to operate like this anymore. No more deception. No more aggressive sales tactics. No more treating people like they're just numbers on a spreadsheet." Rick finally found his voice. "Ethan," he stopped himself, corrected, "Mr. Carter, I understand you're upset, but this is how dealerships work. If we don't push financing, we lose money. If we don't close deals aggressively, customers walk. That's just the business." Ethan's gaze hardened. "No, that's how bad dealerships work. And if that's what you believe in, then you're not the right person to be running this floor." Rick's face drained of color. "You're firing me." "You trained this team," Ethan said, his voice unwavering. "You let this culture take root. You let it thrive. You didn't just allow it, you encouraged it." He paused, then added, "Yes, I'm firing you." Rick opened his mouth, then closed it. He knew there was no saving himself. Without another word, he turned and walked toward his office, probably to collect whatever was his before leaving for good. The silence stretched. Ethan turned back to the employees still watching. "For those of you who believe in doing things the right way, you've got nothing to worry about." But for anyone who thinks what happened today was unfair, he let his eyes scan the faces in front of him. You can leave now. No one moved. Lena, standing near the entrance, cleared her throat. Sir, Ethan shifted his focus to her. Go ahead. She hesitated only for a second before speaking, her voice careful but firm. If we're changing things, what does that actually mean? I mean, besides just getting rid of the bad managers. Ethan appreciated the question. He took a slow breath before answering. It means customers will get fair financing options. It means we don't pressure them into deals that will hurt them in the long run. It means we stop treating people like walking commission checks and start treating them like human beings. Lena nodded. A few others murmured in agreement. Ethan continued, and it also means employees who do the right thing will be rewarded, not punished for being honest. Lena's lips parted slightly in surprise. Ethan knew what she was thinking. She had been walking on eggshells, probably afraid that speaking up would cost her job. He wasn't going to let that happen. He turned toward the finance officer. What's your name? The man straightened. Kevin, Ethan studied him. Kevin, I saw how you handled that deal earlier. You knew I wasn't going to qualify for that rate, but you let Rick push it anyway. How often does that happen? Kevin hesitated, glancing around as if debating whether to answer truthfully. Ethan folded his arms. If you're worried about losing your job, don't be. I'm not here to punish honesty, Kevin sighed. It happens all the time, he admitted. We get people in the door with low advertised rates, but almost no one actually qualifies for them. By the time they realize the real numbers, they're already set on the car and we pressure them to sign anyway. Ethan nodded slowly. Not anymore. Kevin swallowed hard but dipped his head in agreement. Understood. Ethan turned back to the larger group. From now on, transparency is the rule. Customers will know exactly what they're signing up for. No surprises, no last-minute changes. We'll make money the honest way or we won't make it at all. A murmur of uncertainty rippled through the employees. Ethan could see it in their faces. Some were relieved, others were skeptical. Years of working under Rick's leadership had trained them to believe that deception was the only way to succeed in this business. He needed to prove them wrong. His mind went back to Mike, the man Chad had humiliated earlier. Ethan pulled out his phone and dialed. Hello? Mike's voice was cautious. Mike, it's Ethan Carter. He let that sink in for a second before adding, the owner of the dealership, a long pause. Wait, what? Ethan smiled slightly. Yeah. I went undercover today to see how my business was really being run, and I saw what happened to you. Mike didn't respond right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was tight. I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to come back, Ethan said simply, and I want to make things right. Another pause, you mean? Actually sell me a car instead of laughing me off the lot. Yes, at a fair price, with financing that works for you. Mike let out a breath. I don't know what to say. Just come back, Ethan said. That's all. There was another long silence. Then, finally, Mike said, all right. I'll be there soon. Ethan hung up and turned back to the employees. A man walked in here today looking for help. He was humiliated instead. He's coming back and we're going to do right by him. Lena smiled slightly. Kevin straightened in his chair. The rest of the employees remained uncertain, but Ethan could feel it. The shift had begun. Things were changing. And this was only the beginning. The dealership was quieter now. The initial shock of Ethan's reveal had settled, leaving a tense but expectant atmosphere. Employees were adjusting. Customers were cautiously observing, and Ethan was preparing for the moment that would prove whether his team was capable of change. Mike arrived 20 minutes later. He walked through the showroom doors with hesitant steps, his work boots leaving faint dust marks on the pristine tile. His eyes darted around, clearly expecting another round of humiliation. Ethan stepped forward immediately. Mike's gaze landed on him, still uncertain. Didn't think I'd actually hear back from you. Ethan nodded. I keep my word. Let's get you taken care of. Lena, standing nearby, quickly stepped up. I can help you find something reliable within your budget. Mike glanced at her, still wary but sensing a shift. All right. Lena led him towards the used car section while Ethan followed at a distance, watching everything unfold. Employees who had once ignored customers like Mike now stood at attention, realizing that eyes were on them. They landed on a well-maintained sedan, not fancy but dependable. This one's got low mileage, a clean history, and should last you years with good maintenance, Lena explained. We'll make sure the financing terms actually work for you. Mike ran a hand along the hood, clearly liking the car but still bracing for disappointment. And no tricks, Ethan stepped up beside him. None, you'll see every number up front, no hidden fees, no last-minute changes. Mike exhaled, nodding. All right. Let's do this. They moved inside, where Kevin, now fully aware of his new responsibilities, carefully walked Mike through the financing process. Every term was explained, every number made transparent. No pressure, no deception. By the time the paperwork was signed, Mike sat back in his chair, shaking his head in disbelief. Never thought I'd have a dealership actually treat me fairly, Ethan smiled. This is how it should have been all along. Mike stood and extended his hand. Ethan took it firmly. Appreciate this, Mike said, his voice thick with sincerity. Really? Ethan met his gaze. Just promise me one thing. Mike raised an eyebrow. What's that? Tell people what happened today. Let them know this place is changing. Mike smiled. I can do that. As Mike left with his new car, Ethan turned back to his employees. The room was still watching, still waiting to see what came next. Ethan exhaled. This is just the start. The way we do business is changing, and I need people who are willing to be part of that change. He let his gaze sweep the room. If you're in, you have my full support. If you're not, this isn't the place for you anymore. Lena was the first to step forward. I'm in, Kevin followed. Me too, one by one, others nodded. Some still looked hesitant, but the shift was undeniable. Ethan knew it would take time to rebuild trust with customers, to repair the damage done, but today had set the foundation. And for the first time in a long time, he felt like his business was truly his again. Ethan arrived at the dealership early the next morning. The sun was barely up, but he wanted to be there before anyone else. He stood outside for a moment, looking at the building that bore his family name. It felt different now, like it needed to be earned again. When he stepped inside, he saw Lena already at her desk, flipping through paperwork. She looked up, startled for a second, then gave a small nod. Didn't take you for a morning person. Ethan smirked. Didn't take you for one either. She shrugged. Figured if we're going to do things differently, I should get a head start. Ethan appreciated that. She was smart, motivated, and had the right instincts. He needed more people like her. By the time the rest of the staff arrived, the energy in the building had shifted. Word had spread about what had happened the day before, about Chad's firing, Rick's dismissal, and the new direction Ethan had laid out. Some employees looked nervous, others hopeful. A few still seemed skeptical. Ethan gathered everyone in the showroom before opening hours. He stood in front of them, hands in his pockets, and let the silence settle. I know yesterday was a shock for a lot of you, he said finally. Some of you probably thought it was just for show, that things would go back to the way they were in a few days. His gaze swept over the group. They won't. No one spoke, but the tension was thick. I built this business from nothing, Ethan continued. When I started, I swore we'd be different. That we'd be the kind of dealership people could trust. Somewhere along the way, we lost that. He let the words sink in for a moment. I'm fixing it. And I need people who actually believe in doing things the right way. A few heads nodded, others remained still. Ethan exhaled and motioned toward Lena. Lena proved yesterday that she's the kind of person who belongs here. She warned customers about bad deals even when it wasn't in her best interest. That's the kind of leadership we need, he turned to her. Starting today, you're the new sales manager. Lena's eyes widened. Wait, what? You heard me, Ethan said simply. A few murmurs rippled through the group. Some surprised, others clearly skeptical that someone so junior was getting promoted. Lena hesitated. I appreciate it, but I don't know if you're the right person for the job, Ethan interrupted. You care about the customers. You do things honestly. That's exactly the kind of leadership this place needs. Lena glanced at the team, then back at Ethan. She took a slow breath, then nodded. All right, I won't let you down. Ethan smiled. I know you won't. He let the moment settle before turning back to the group. Now, let's talk about real change. Effective immediately, our commission structure is shifting. No more rewarding people for pushing bad deals. You'll be rewarded for customer satisfaction, for repeat business, for honesty. If that's a problem for anyone, you know where the door is. No one moved. Good, Ethan said. The rest of the morning was spent restructuring how things worked. Lena adjusted sales strategies to focus on long-term relationships with customers rather than quick sales. Kevin worked with Ethan to overhaul financing policies, ensuring transparency in every deal. Customers started trickling in, and for the first time in a long time, the energy on the floor felt different. Salespeople were explaining deals properly, guiding customers instead of pressuring them. Around midday, an older couple came in looking for a car for their granddaughter. Ethan watched as Lena personally helped them, walking them through options without a hint of manipulation. By the time they left, they were smiling, thanking her for making the experience easy. That was how it should be. As the day wound down, Ethan sat in his office reviewing documents when his phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Mike told some guys at work about what happened. One of them needs a car, he's coming by tomorrow. Hope this wasn't just a one-time thing. Ethan smiled. He typed back, it's not. See you soon. Then he leaned back in his chair, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time, pride. His dealership was on the right path again. And this time, it was going to stay that way.